In 10 years, things are going to change so much. Of course, technology is going to evolve. Of course, there's going to be new innovations. But I actually think the next 10 years are going to be different.
I didn't think we'll have such a stark divide between producer and consumer, and increasingly that will be more of a relationship and a two-way conversation.
I don't think we'll have a very high tolerance for what collaboration looks like now. We'll be off to something that's very, very different.
So in a world where infinite information is at our disposal, it becomes a big challenge as to how can you then find the piece of information that you're looking for.
There's going to be whole new waves of innovation that are going to introduce new thoughts, new ideas, new concepts into the way we work, the way we use information that nobody's even thought of yet.
I think we're all content producers now.
This world of augmented reality and
Analytics to create better filters for the information that comes out.
2023 is not so far away.
I am an eternal optimist. Otherwise, why would I go start a couple of companies? It's absolutely crazy. But part of this is I really love the idea of the future. Ever since watching the Jetsons as a kid and the jetpacks and whatever that we might possibly have, I just love future stuff. And in our industry, we're not done. We're not even close to done. And that's what I'd like to talk about today. Now, I was tweeting while Andrew McAfee was up there because he had some great stuff to say, and I wanted to share it and let everybody outside of this room know what's going on here. Now, who was tweeting during that session? Okay. Few people. Now, how many people here have a mobile phone on them right now? So what's wrong with the rest of you? You know, come on. I'm actually going to say, get out your mobile phones right now, open up your Twitter app, and let's get tweeting here, okay? Let's get it trending. And there's actually some stuff that I hope you'll be tweeting about quite a bit. You just saw the trailer for a lot of work that we're doing right now to understand what is the future of content, which is really what is the future of work. So I'll give you a hashtag at the end and start tweeting that as much as possible. Those of you who have been here before, who's been to one of these, to DevCon before? Roughly half. So what you will know is that I like to introduce themes into my presentation. You know, this can't just be dull, boring, you know, just same old, lots of bullet points and whatever. I just want to add a little bit of fun in there. And most of you also know that I make changes right up to the very last minute on my presentations. Well, you know what? I actually didn't do it this time, except I had to add a couple extra tweaks to it, like put my Twitter address on there. So make sure you tweet. But the theme this time is Back to the Future, because it looked into the future and it actually got a lot of things right, like people wearing baseball caps all the time, and how people work and how they live. In fact, a lot of towns that are coming up look like whatever Smallville or whatever he came from. So it's actually kind of interesting to take and go back and look at these things. So Marty, you won't believe the future of content. I have gone out there, I've seen it, and I want to tell you all about it. So we're all going to come together and cram into the DeLorean. I'm sure we can figure out some way of cramming all you into the DeLorean right here. And okay, boom, we're in 2003. Wasn't that amazing? So, you know what? We didn't have all these things. We didn't have Facebook. there were no MacBooks. There was no Google Maps. There was no Dropbox, YouTube. There were no Androids or iPhones, no Twitter, no app stores, no podcasts, no Amazon Web Services, no LinkedIn, no WordPress. And where were the blogs then if there was no WordPress? There was no Ruby on Rails or Skype or Evernote or all those things. You know, just imagine they just kind of disappear. Just like Marty when the futural, temporal, whatever gets out of whack. Oops. So imagine, you know, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be different as well that just seem really old-fashioned. Now, in 2003, I don't throw away anything, nothing. So this is actually my iPod from 2003. In fact, it was my second iPod. The other one was twice as thick as this. And this was, what, 20 megabytes, something like that? And it's in black and white, and it's just this little dot thing. This was my mobile phone. BlackBerry. No 3G. And that was mobile computing. And everybody thought that this was the future. So what we see today, in fact, some of those things that have disappeared may actually disappear in the future as well. Things can get radically different in a blink of an eye. Now, this is not about a lot of those consumer things, the things we take for granted. This is more about work. And work is not necessarily what it should be. We've actually lost a few things in the last 10 years, like the ability to concentrate is getting so hard. Now, I was of two minds to ask you to get out your mobile phones to tweet, and you are tweeting, right? Right? Can somebody check to make sure everybody in this room is tweeting? Okay. I was of two minds because while I was tweeting about Andrew McAfee, ooh, look at that, ooh. It can be extremely distracting. And what I hope is that we can get beyond some of these things. So work today is pretty disconnected. Lots of islands of information still after talking about it for a long time. It's very distracting. It's often unintuitive. It's unproductive. I actually am not sure how much more productive I am today with all those tools than I was 10 years ago. There's also a lot of unreasonable risk out there. Compared to 10 years ago, I find it hard to believe, but you know, it's actually a more uncertain world in a lot of respects than it was back then. A lot more complexity, a lot more fragility. So really, I think the perfect metaphor for work today and the workplace and business in general is the US Congress. There they all are, swearing it wasn't them that did it. So let's get beyond those sorts of things. So now, in order to figure out what's going to happen next, 10 years ago, I actually went through an exercise that I go through about every 5 years, and I'm doing it again. There are tools out there that will allow you to predict the future. One is Moore's Law. Just taking Moore's Law and extrapolating, I knew that 10 years from 2003, today, our computers will be roughly 16 times more powerful than they were then. Now, I could have brought that as a prop as well, but my Dell Latitude is like about that thick and weighs about 6 pounds, and I just didn't want to check my luggage, so I didn't bring that. And storage. We have about 10 times as much storage as we did then. I mean, it's constantly, it's like you think, oh, I've doubled my space. Oh, where'd my space go? I can't believe that I got along with the amount of space that I had on my laptop back then. And displays just keep getting better and better. Not quite as exponential as storage and processing power, but it's pretty amazing what you can have on a mobile device right now. It's amazing that I can watch a movie. Then bandwidth. Yeah, try watching a movie on a BlackBerry. It's not very interesting. So bandwidth. Now, this is from Verizon, who are predicting that bandwidth to your mobile device is going to be 1 gigabit. That's wireless is 1 gigabit. So wired, you actually have something pretty close to 100 gigabits today in some of the Asian countries. But it'll become the norm everywhere. So basically, stuff will just instantly download. But somehow that capacity is all going to be taken up. But you can kind of get a sense of what happens when we have an average compute processing power of 16 times. With the cloud, at any given moment, we can have 100 times, 1,000 times the capacity that we have today. What can you do with 1,000 times the capacity? And what we had in terms of our enterprise storage has now become cloud storage. What can we do with 20 times the space that we have today? And all seamlessly connected and integrated. What can we do with a 5,000 by 300 or 3,200 retina level display? What's possible with that? And what's possible with this infinite bandwidth that will allow us to chunk and compute and do all sorts of things that we couldn't do before? Now, we said there's a lot of problems we have to solve, like fragility and risk and whatever. And probably one of the biggest risks that we are going to be facing is we constantly live in a more competitive world. In the last 10 years, it's amazing the competitive pressures that have been put on the United States, particularly by Asia. And it's not just Asia, it's going to be everywhere. Everyone is going to be more competitive, a new workforce, different dynamics and demographics. And that trend of the average lifespan of a company is going to continue to go down, constantly changing over and over again to be less and less. We have to react to these changes. Changing in the future, becoming more productive, is imperative. It's not an option. So what are some of the characteristics of this workplace? Well, we have already seen that it can be absolutely everywhere. But it certainly has to be more resilient than it is today. Hierarchical structures just cannot react to pressures and changes the way that more resilient, flatter organizations can. And the workplace has to be more focused. We have no option. We can't be more distracted than we are today. We have to be less distracted. And part of that is it has to be easier. Our technology should be helping us, not defeating us. Also, I think there's been a real change in terms of usage of technology as well. The usage has been part of the left brain geeks. I helped invent an industry that seems as geeky as you can possibly imagine. And it's changing though. There's more right brain people coming into the workforce and actually becoming more prominent, bringing more creative pressures into this rather than analytical talents and capabilities. And enabling this workplace is going to be that unlimited computing, a new organization structure, a different way of working, really smart, at least seemingly smart, connected software that will be at your beck and call to solve problems, in fact, anticipate solutions before it even happens. And our devices, well, I thought it was amazing that I could get email anywhere, and that was only just the beginning. Now you can get anything anywhere on any device, and it's only going to be more so. And one of the key drivers to the capabilities we have today, and I think will continue to be important, is openness and interoperability. The things that open source has brought to the software industry will continue to be really important. But we're information workers. And what's different about this? As information workers, yeah, we're consumers. But being a consumer, does that define what it is that we want to be and do? Well, no. Let's think about what information is. Well, first of all, it's data. but it's not like data in the database. It's data with interpretation, an understanding, an analysis. You know, yes, you can derive all sorts of things and predictions that, as we saw this morning, from the data, but the interpretation of that data is incredibly important. And the context as well. Having information with context means that it can be used for specific purposes and applied appropriately. And it's not going to be dry stuff anymore. It's not going to be endless bullet points anymore. It's not going to be blah, 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 where you just skip over and say, oh yeah, of course I read it, when you really just skimmed it. It needs to be compelling. It needs to be viral. And then finally, one of the big things that distinguishes what you do as a consumer versus what you do in business is business has to be about intent. It has to be about serving the customer and providing them with capabilities that nobody else can provide. So that's information, and that's what our future should enable, is data with interpretation, context, creativity, and intent. So I'm going to present to you the future of content. Okay? Let's all cram in. Get back in. And here we are in the year 2023. So we had a graphic artist kind of take some of these concepts and imagine what might it be like with those capabilities that we just discussed in terms of display, compute power, in terms of bandwidth, and everything else that comes with the natural progression of technology. What might that be? I took a certain inspiration from traders. People in the finance industry get the best technology. They get tons of technology, and they will surround themselves with as many displays as possible to constantly keep on tap with everything that's going on. But we have an advantage in the future. I see no reason why these displays cannot open up a whole new dimension, a third dimension, in terms of working with information. We should be able to pull together all that information that we need to work. But I think something even more important is the ability to concentrate. That the software should understand who we are as individuals, understand how we work, and to know when maybe we're a little bit tired, maybe we need to take a break. To know that we're in the flow. The psychological concept of flow is what you get when you're playing a game, video game or whatever, or when you're just writing and it's just coming out and everything seems to be working great. You know that feeling where you really feel productive? Imagine being able to feel like that every day. Now, you can't feel like that all the time, but why can't you feel like that every day, that you're actually getting stuff done and that you're concentrating, being able to do stuff? And the software can also help by eliminating, one of the key distractions is when I go off to research and find something else, that's the time that I end up going onto Facebook and looking, ooh, look what he's doing today, or whatever. You just get distracted when you start actually not working, but actually starting to do things like research. So the authoring environment should be much more productive. Collaboration should be very different. And that's not just technology. The way we collaborate should be different as well. So we'll have new displays that will bring together content that we can all see. Now, face-to-face is proven that is not going to go away. Face-to-face is still really important. That's why Summit is really important, even though we could have had this virtually. But sometimes we know that people can't be there. Now, I have been that little box in the middle of the room, when everybody else is sitting around, and you're just going, bark, 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 coming out of the squawk box in the middle of the table. And And it's not a fun, fun place to be sometimes. But we've got video conferencing, yeah, it's there, but it should be more realistic, more lifelike. And I don't mean holograms or whatever, but certainly more participation of people working together. Now, this is stuff that's actually happening right now. Having collaborative environments, three-dimensional environments as well, where we can look at things in 3D. So this scenario is city planners kind of reviewing what's going on. But the collaboration itself is going to be very different. We found that gamification can actually help. How can gamification help in the context of getting people to participate more, to contribute more? It's easy to consume a lot and just kind of sit in the side, but you have to be bought in. You have to add to that process. So we'll see gamification becoming an important part of collaboration as well as all the neat little 3D charts and whatever that will pop up. So it can be a very productive, interesting environment, and hopefully keep meetings actually much shorter rather than longer and more frequent. Now in the future, we will all be information workers, everybody, because doing a task, we should be able to have that right at our fingertips. Now, I use this thing here when I'm fixing my bicycle or looking at something in the car or installing stuff and trying to do stuff at the same time is a little bit like tweeting and watching a presentation at the same time. It's very difficult. But what if it's just there? What if when I'm working on something, the tasks that are required to do something are there? What happens if all the information about that thing is just there? We're about to enter the age of the Internet of Things, where everything is internet addressable. And that naturally lends itself to the content of things. The fact that anything that's out there, I know by context of location, the things I'm doing or whatever, that the information's right there about what's wrong with this piece of equipment. In fact, the equipment can pre-alert us as to what's going on. Some of our customers are doing that today. Predictive failures, saying, look out, change this part. And then when you actually go and change the part, the information's right there. Now, I'm not going to make any prediction because I'm not any good at this in terms of what the 3D glasses or the 3D presentation is going to be like. Hopefully, it's going to be as unobtrusive as possible. I do know it's not going to look anything like Google Glasses. I mean, how many people here actually have Google Glass? I was recently at Dublin Web Conference, and Robert Scoble was the only person wearing it, and he did it for show, because when he was at the parties, they were not on. So anyway, as consumers of information, context will bring us all the things that we need to be more productive. And how we do work has to change. I think we have managers and managers, and that will probably continue, but the nature of work is probably going to move from agile, what we would consider agile development in terms of scrums, in terms of sprints, and just how we collaborate should be a little less formal and perhaps a bit more assisted as well in terms of providing information in the management process. But it will become more of a coordination process. The project coordinators will go to make sure that things get done and people will come and go. It'll be a much more dynamic environment that perhaps is going to come from many different people in outsourced locations. So we already see a significant trend in the last 10 years of people becoming contractors as almost permanent employees. Well, that may be the permanent state of things, that it continues to be kind of boiled up and changed and whatever, and the nature of work as a result changes. And then content. We've had 3 decades or more of text files, spreadsheets, at least I remember 1, 2, 3 and VisiCalc and whatever, and presentations. I remember the first time I used PowerPoint was in 1988, I think it was. And it's still there. And I don't think they're going to go away. I think the paradigms are still going to be there. Now, will they be provided by Microsoft? I think that's a really interesting question that Microsoft itself needs to answer, especially with a new CEO. But there's going to be other types of content as well. Images, rich media, music, sound, lots of other things are going to become really important to make compelling content, likable content, not just factual content, to actually communicate your message more effectively. Now, 3D will be great. 4D is even better. To be able to, when you have that much storage, you will not be throwing anything away unless there is a policy to throw it away. So every single key click, every single cut and paste is going to be tracked. And what are the possibilities then? I can actually look and trace back to where did this information originally come? And where did this word come from? Now, cut and paste today is considered a really bad thing. But it made me think again when I went to the Museum of Modern Art in New York, where they had this exhibition of cut and paste in architecture. That it's been an important element of architecture with photo montages and things like that. If we made cut and paste a good thing because it's traceable, it's trackable, then there's a heck of a lot of information now that you can do all sorts of machine learning on and analysis and actually really understand the intent and what's going on in that content. So the content itself may sort of look the same. You know, Jimmy Wales is saying that Wikipedia is probably going to be the same sort of experience, but I think how Wikipedia gets created is going to be very different. And when we start to apply other things, I think the content just becomes richer and richer. And with more creative types involved in the process, just more and more compelling overall. Now, there are hints of this today. Everything I've talked about today, there's some element of it that is actually happening maybe in a lab, maybe in MIT Media Lab, maybe in some research facility, maybe some leading edge customers are doing something like that. Well, if you had to wear those giant goggles every day, I bet you wouldn't wear that, but we know it's going to change. We know it's going to get smaller. You know, just look at the iPod here. You know, it's a postage stamp now if you want to have the same capability with the same storage. So you know that it's going to get a lot smaller and simpler. And so I think that kind of gives us an indication of what has to happen next. Now, we always overestimate the next 2 years and underestimate the next 10. It sort of scared me when Andrew talked about experts, because I know how foolhardy it is to try and go and predict the future. It's crazy to go off and do that, because you guys are going to come back 10 years ago and say, you know what you said. So, okay, fine. I will still be here. At least I hope so. And maybe not a bit grayer, if that's possible. But I think what he also talked about is we have to look at what's next. And we have to dare to dream what happens next. You know, even if it is the notion of Office documents in the year 2023, how horrible is that? They're going to get rid of that ribbon bar. So that brings me to Back to the Future Part 2. Now, if we go back, they did some amazing things. I mean, look at that. They predicted that Marty was going to work from home and that he would just be teleconferencing on a flat screen with his boss. And remember, this is 1985. And look, you got some social stuff up there. What foods does he like and whatever. That's amazing. But I don't know about those double ties. I don't know, maybe you can start a new fashion trend. Also, he's working for an Asian boss as well. Did you know that most of the growth in IT over the next several years is going to be Asian companies employing IT in the United States? That's where most of the growth of jobs in IT is going to come from. You know, just look at Samsung and their research facilities. So they got some stuff really right and some things really wrong. But look at this. That was the office environment in 1985. IBM PC, bad hair, dot matrix printers, you know, so they didn't have much to go from. So I think they did a pretty good job figuring that out. So we got to figure out what happens next. So there's a lot of smart technologies that are out there really driving the change today. And it's sort of futuristic stuff, really, you know, especially compared to 10 years ago. All the social stuff, cloud, big data, mobile analytics, you know, and all the different web technologies. People are reinventing the whole application stack and the way that you actually build applications. But I think, going back to the future, ECM will still be really important because things like customer responsiveness, productivity, time to value, reacting to new market pressures, new regulatory demands, and saving money and efficiency are still going to be important. And those are the things that happen because content is business. Content is what we do in the office. It is our work as information workers. So we get a lot of things and have in the past in terms of context, process control, automation, life cycle, retention, security. That's what gives us those advantages. But we're getting even more. We'll be getting analytics, recommendation, intelligence, semantics, connections, and focus on the solution, which is information solutions. You know, that is what ECM will bring into this future world. And I think it's going to be hybrid as well. Yes, we're moving to a cloud world, but it's not going to be instantaneous. It's not like we get into the DeLorean, boom, there it is. So we got this cloud world that is really compelling. In fact, a lot of people are kind of resistant to even think about it, but you have to. Because if you want to engage with your customers, if you want to deliver them the information that they need, if you want to get them in the field and accessing all this information, cloud is often not only the best way to do it, sometimes it's the only way to do it. But the roots run deep. There's a portion that will always be on-premise, that will never go into the cloud, where security is paramount, where you need to consider, am I risking anything by putting it out there? Do I need to have this on-premise? So a lot of it has to do with compliance. A lot of rules are not going to change, even 10 years from now. A lot of financial information that you may have in your accounting systems or whatever, it will still be important to keep on-premise. And the stuff that you deem as confidential. So public stuff, great, in the cloud. Confidential, classified information, no, don't put it in the cloud. But there's going to be a 60% that could go either way. And that's probably your path to the cloud, where stuff may start on-premise first and then go in the cloud, or maybe start in the cloud and go on-premise after starting in the cloud for records or retention purposes. And a lot of that is defined by the business process and the business problems that you're dealing with. So that's why the use cases and concentrating on the use cases are really important for us. Now, these are some of the things that you are all using Alfresco for today. There's certain patterns that you can't go to a file sharing system, or that system is just too creaky to be able to respond to the new requirements in areas like knowledge retention. I'm a baby boomer, and the baby boomers are going away. 10 years from now, there's going to be far fewer of us blocking the career paths of people in the next generation. Finally, right? But there's a lot of knowledge locked up, kind of equivalent to the Saturn V project. All that knowledge is gone. It's just gone. All we can do is reverse engineer it. You don't want to reverse engineer all that knowledge and information and experience. Oops. Design. Design is naturally a collaborative process. It's really content rich. Now, it will actually become more physical, and it'd be kind of interesting to see to what extent a printed artifact is going to be. Is that something that you will want content management control on? Well, certainly the designs, but who knows? Manufacturing will change, one-offs, and how you manage that process and keep consistency and quality is still going to be really important. Business-to-business collaboration, kind of the core of what we're starting with in the cloud. That won't go away. Negotiation, casework, customer onboarding, marketing, compliance. These are some of the use cases that will continue to be important, actually core to the business processes. And a lot of those require that flexibility rather than being in one place or the other. And the solutions that come out of that, we need to start thinking about the user more. What's the user want? The user wants to just have easy access, to just kind of sync all their content without really worrying about it. Make it transparent, make it invisible. To be able to share simply, easily. I want this person to be able to see it. I want to be able to search in a really smart, intelligent way. I just want the stuff to be smart. Don't bother me with it, you figure it out. Then the business analyst is there as the prototype for the business coordinator of the future. Looking at process, looking at modeling, looking at analytics and control, but not necessarily needing to be that technical person, just somebody who understands the business problem and the solutions that are required. And then IT, they just want to get out of the data center business, don't they? I mean, how many people in IT really want to be doing exactly what you're doing 10 years from now? I'm sure you want to do something slightly different and perhaps contributing directly to the bottom line. So, let's go ahead and pop 1 year into the future. Next DevCon. Where's it going to be? Don't ask me. They don't tell me these things. It's above my pay grade. So anyway, what we hope we'll be doing is building a business future for content. We want to focus on business problems. So creating smart and simple solutions for the end user, including things like search, sync, share, capture, deliver. We want to create simple and smart business solutions for the business analyst to help analyze the processes, the modeling, everything required to solve the problem. And we want to give IT the opportunity to get out of that business as much as they can afford to do in a simple, secure, compliant hybrid environment. So still keep the security and compliance, but make it easier. And to have simple and smart solutions as well that are verticalized and packaged and certified. Now, simple and smart for end user. They predicted that simple and smart in the future is going to be Ronald Reagan. No, I don't think so. Good try. So now we got this really powerful tool, which is the Alfresco One Cloud, that it provides us an environment that we can take you the latest software. As soon as it's created, we can bring it to you. Now, we haven't used that capability anywhere near as much, but we will, to be able to create a much simpler, compelling first-time experience, to make it easier to share stuff, to just get it out there and sharing as quickly as possible, to provide a smarter previewing environment, and then to use the cloud to actually measure how well is it doing for you guys. There's a lot of tools that we have at our disposal now that when we put something out, we will know whether it works or not relatively quickly without a beta cycle or whatever. Now, there's a bunch of people here who would love to be in Boston right now, despite the weather. And they would have really loved to be in Barcelona, but it was great. I don't want to make you envious, but 70 degrees, nice warm breeze by the Mediterranean. It was great. But anyway, Boston beans, great. Okay, but baseball. Okay. Anyway, so they're working on smart hybrid sync, and they're doing it with whole new algorithms that will make it really smart, to be more proactive, to actually use some of the big data techniques that we've been discussing to make it so that it's more proactive about pushing changes rather than having to pull all the time. And there's a lot of stuff that we can do, but we need to be able to do it in a hybrid environment, and we need to do it in a really scalable way. And that will provide us with the easy application integration, easy collaboration, intelligent synchronization, and be able, we'll work on things like conflict resolution and stuff like that. But we should make this just invisible to the user that they're using Alfresco. And workflow. We need to make workflow for the end users. I don't think anybody's really done that yet. I think a lot of people have attempted that. And there's a lot of things that we can do, and we've got a great tool with Activity, but there's a whole lot of user interface tools that we can bring to bear on this to make this a simple process of just saying, this is what I intended. This is the business process that I want, without the users getting all caught up in the business analysis terminology. And having the ability to create the forms, the properties, and the templates that you need to be able to drive this over and over again when you decide. And ultimately, it'll be ready for mobile as well. So one of you analysts out there, you can tell me which one had predicted this, but that most processes in the next couple of years are actually going to be initiated from mobile devices. Most workflows will be initiated by mobile devices. So that's an interesting concept. Certainly 10 years from now, that's probably going to be true. Smarter search and discovery as well, to make it easy to be able to take, find, search, and do faceted search, to be able to drill down for the information you wanted, to be able to discover, there's other dimensions to the information that you wanted accessing, and to be able to do things like find more like this, rather than make it complicated to define searches. And we will have a lot better integration. I think we're the only other ones that are implementing the SharePoint protocol, but there's more that we can do, and we're actually going to be bringing in more metadata integration into the documents, better desktop integration, and Outlook integration. So that's some of the things you can think of, that any objections that may be related to SharePoint will just kind of go away, because we will be able to do all the things that SharePoint does. And then smart mobile content as well. We're going to be re-implementing search, how you deal with folders, and being able to synchronize with folders as well. And to provide better control as well, more secure control, integration with MDM providers, as well as administrative tools for lightweight MDM, so you can control who accesses what information from what mobile devices, and to have it role-based as well in conjunction with some of the Alfresco Workdesk stuff. And if you haven't seen the new records management, I think you'll be amazed, because you don't even know that you're doing it. And that's ultimately what records management should be all about, because you know what? We're actually all records managers. Anybody who files a tax return, you better keep those documents. But really, everything we create, we should be more judicious in terms of how we deal with stuff. Well, this will allow us to make it a lot easier to be able to do that. So look forward to the demo tomorrow. And accessibility. This is something that we probably should have made more progress on. It's certainly a big issue for the US government, but it's really an issue for everybody. Anyone who employs people should not really care about their abilities, except their ability to do the job that needs to be done. We should not be an impediment to that. So we'll be working on the 508 compliance and actually go through the whole application and figure out what can we do to make this a better environment for those of us who can't see as well, who can't type as well. And smart and simple for the business analyst. What can we do there? Well, we're going to be bringing content solutions that will allow you to be able to create solutions relatively easy, to be able to package them up, to do simple analysis, to easily create those workflows, to create information modeling, to design the forms more easily, to present the simple process designs, the templates, and then be able to package it and deploy it. We're also going to be working on analytics as well. And this is going to be pretty core to a lot of things that we do in the future. This is a lot of the big data stuff out there. But to be able to provide the portlets, you know, the information, the overview. Now, I love this because managers love graphs and managers buy Alfresco. So I want to give you the graphs that help sells Alfresco. And this is the tool to be able to do it. But we're going to add more information to be able to slice and dice this information, but be able to aggregate this in nice, simple ways and be able to deal with things like time series reports. Whether information's popular or not, you know, what needs to be cleaned out, what needs to be presented and put forward. And of course, what can we do in terms of processes as well? What's the analysis on the processes? Which kind of gets me into smart process apps. So, Alfresco Workdesk, you know, that's a big change since last year. We have a whole new set of German buddies with us right now that, you know, to help us understand what are different ways of looking at the problems that we've got, to help streamline the document-centric business processes. Now, they're pretty busy integrating more activity capabilities in there, integrating records management, reporting and analytics, and providing a more interactive user experience as well as handling much larger caseloads. So they're pretty busy right now. We're also working on some solution templates as well around contracts, and that's the first one. Some of the other ones that we're considering are things like employee onboarding, mailroom automation, information request and handling. And the hybrid architecture continues and becomes an increasingly important part of the architecture as well. So not only will you be able to sync information, but with the latest release, you'll be able to actually have workflows that span from on-premise into the cloud and into another organization. There's a really powerful and unique capability because how many business processes stop at the end of the firewall, that stop at the four walls of the enterprise? Actually, very, very few, and most of those are not value-added processes. And then smart and simple for IT. Now, one of the things we can do is we can make it easier for you to deploy into the cloud. You know, we've been working with Amazon Web Services to make it easier to be able to take and deploy that because CIOs want to get out of the data center business. You know, we're providing you the tools that we've got when we deploy our cloud with things like, you know, support for EC2 and configuration EC2, access to S3, the RDS database services. And then that's not the only one because realize that people also want to use VMware. So VMware and OpenStack are going to be important stacks that we need to look forward to in the future. And the whole idea is that you get that enterprise level of control that and the customization and whatever that you may need that we can't really provide you with Alfresco in the cloud, but you can do that with AWS, but still provide the full hybrid sync. And we can continue to make administration simple. We certainly did a lot in 4.2, and I hope it shows in the next day or so when you start to see some of the sessions. But there's more that we can do in terms of logging, import, export, health check, packaging, site administration, dealing with roles and data models. And data models we know is pretty important. And then smart scaling as well. We're going to go to the Solar 4.0 server, which gives us all sorts of things. Not just the capabilities of Solar, it gives us some of the capabilities that in terms of clustering, in terms of sharding, and there's a lot more that we can do in that area. We're also distributing some of the processes as well, offloading some of those, particularly transformation, but other things as well that may be really CPU intensive, and we can take advantage of elastic computing to be able to make that much more effective. And transactional queries, we'll continue to work on those. Those are a big improvement for a lot of different types of queries, especially if they need to be absolutely up to date. And then finally, simple and smart solutions. As easy as the Mr. Fusion. Remember that? Took the banana skin and that was enough for the fly back into the future, past, whatever. I'd love to have a solution like that, wouldn't you? So some of the simple and smart solutions are media management, records management, image management. And you know, we've been working on those all along. But also some integrations as well. There's some really interesting ones that are coming up, particularly with Salesforce and Dreamforce coming up here. And I've already talked about some of the Alfresco Workdesk solution templates. But Salesforce integration, this is really interesting because we've had an opportunity to work with Salesforce on this. You know, that's not their core competence. You know, content is not their core competence. And they realize that they have to reach into the enterprise. And they have to reach into real ECM systems because that's where contracts come from. That's where the marketing materials come from. So we'll be able to capture some of the metadata from Salesforce, and ultimately we'll be able to have bidirectional, pull from Salesforce, push from Alfresco, and back and forth. Also realize Salesforce storage is kind of expensive, and this can often be a very cost-effective way of dealing with content inside of Salesforce. Media management. Ray's going to be busy kind of fleshing out the whole thing of more image management inside of Share. We're scaling out some of the transformation services, you know, some particularly video and things like that, and some video storyboarding and bookmarks. So look for more of that in the future because content is the future, or sorry, media, rich media is the future of content and a very important aspect of it. But we also have certified partner solutions as well. Well, certified partner and other partner solutions. So the first two have come out. I think you've heard about some of them already. So we have the SAP integration from Connexus and FSoft Capture. So Peter Monks is pulling together a certification program, and these are the first two to come through. But there's lots of other solutions as well, such as, I know it's small, so I'll read them out. Publishing from Ixis, Drupal integration from AppNovation, mortgage processing from MicroStrategies, web experience management from Crafter, intelligent document capture from FSoft, and court modernization from Zia. Well, anyway, you can see all of them out there, and I hope you've taken advantage of that. Now, back to the future part 3, and I know I'm way behind here. Somehow, it's the cold. I'm going to blame it on the cold that I just can't keep up. My brain is too slow right now. Anyway, our roadmap. Where we're going, we don't need roads. So, but I would like to talk about kind of where we're heading here. So here we go again. So another year from now. So you might see some of this coming up here, but there's going to be some new things, very different types of things that are coming up. And Doug alluded to some of them earlier this morning. But we're looking at applications in the cloud. We're looking at how the cloud environment has evolved from things like SuccessFactors, Salesforce, Workday, NetSuite. It's really applications and solutions that customers are looking for as they get out of the data center business. Just solve all my problems. So we're looking at this from a really cloud perspective, kind of starting from scratch, and just say, you know, we want a new way of looking at design, style, but we want to bring the things that are really important from Alfresco, which is context, productivity, process, and collaboration. And look at some of the processes that are really important that need to go outside the four walls, particularly around sales, marketing, service, and negotiation. Now there's dozens of applications that we can create, and we will. We're going to start launching them over and over again. And there's certain templates that are obviously reproducible with just slight variations in different processes. But what's common of those cloud providers that may be different from on-premise software is it's all about configuration, not customization. Partly because in order to build a scalable service, that's the way you got to do things. But also it just makes life simpler for everybody if you just configure rather than customize, which is something that SAP learned kind of the hard way. And it's designed and built for cloud as well. You know, we're taking the best parts of Alfresco, but reimagining and rebuilding some of the pieces that could be perhaps better done in the cloud. Make it more elastic, partitioned, streamlined. Building things with web components that are reusable. And building a next generation UI. You know, you just see all these web apps and stuff like that that are just amazing. Like, how did you do that in a web browser? Well, HTML5 provides a lot of that, but so do some of the toolkits that even a year ago didn't exist, let alone 10 years ago. And we're using an agile next generation development process in this. One integrated team, constantly, rapidly deploying over and over again. So it's just a really different way of looking at it. So there you see this fabulous office in central London. I'll tell you, the location is great. It's wonderful. It's right off Oxford Circus, but we went and got all the furniture from IKEA and all the guys put it together themselves. That's the way you do it. And we got to look at this, recognizing the realities of where information is going to live. Now, increasingly, applications will be moving to the cloud. It's inevitable. You know, it's just, you just don't get the economies of scale on-premise that you can get in the cloud. So we will continue to support. We're not giving up on on-premise. It's still really, really important. And a lot of people just are not ready. But we should make it easier for you to get up there. So we'll be creating these applications in the cloud. And ultimately, you should be able to decide where you want to store your data. Now, if I said we're going to take all the data in Alfresco and put it up in the cloud, a lot of people would just walk up and get out of this room and say, okay, on to the next one. But, you know, that's not it's not a process that happens overnight. In fact, it might be a process that happens over 10 years. Maybe it happens over 5 years. And it probably depends on the speed of the industry and speed of the company in terms of whether they're ready to do that. But we should provide the choice that these smart apps should be able to access information on-premise as well as in the cloud, and something in between. So things like government clouds, where you get economies of scale, certainly at a federal level, but you know, it's not quite having it public cloud. There's a lot of legal issues we need to deal with. There's a lot of technological issues that we need to deal with, but it's going to happen. And we want to provide the hybrid way of being able to get up there and do that. So this is some of the stuff that you'll be seeing in that sort of time frame. So I can't say what our competitors are going to do, but I can certainly dump on them because I don't see them doing anything like the stuff that we've been discussing here. I don't see them getting ready for the next 10 years. I always want to look at the next 10 years. And they want to look back 10 years, back to the good old days. And it just ain't going to come. You know, it's different, it's more competitive. So, summing up, the future is simple. The future is smart. The future is smart and simple. The future is also hybrid and very flexible. And content should be where you want it to be. And it should just kind of run anywhere and store anywhere. It should be up to you, you know, at your pace when you want to be able to do that. But, you know, for all of us, I think it's really important to keep an eye on the future, you know, because it's too easy to get locked into the present. And sometimes it's too easy to get locked in the past as well. So I hope we can start a Twitter conversation here. The video that you saw at the beginning is just the trailer of what's coming. We've been talking to all sorts of people. People like Jimmy Wales, people like Jeffrey Moore, John Mancini, and people who are like from MIT that have just started realizing what the potential is of intelligent capture of voice and understanding meetings and augmented reality and what you could do with augmented reality. So look for this hashtag, keep it saved, and let's start as well, because you guys have ideas. We don't have the monopoly on it. Andrew's right. It's like you can, when we start just kind of filling ourselves with only our opinion, well, you get what you deserve. But I want to know what you guys think as well. So let's use Twitter to start a conversation here. So now, how many people tweeted? And the rest of you? Are you going to do it when you get back to the hotel room? Yeah, right. Well, you can start right now. Just do that hashtag right there, Work 2023. Work 2023. What is life going to be like 10 years from now? So I know I have run over my time. Oh my gosh. So one more time. Thank you very much.